Time for another Indomitus conversion video, and today I'm going to convert the Necron Plasmancer. It's coming right up.
Necrons!
Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. And if you're new to the channel and you want to learn about Necrons and more, then please subscribe and hit the bell button to turn on all notifications so you don't miss an upload. Okay, so today I'm going to continue converting the Indomitus Necrons, and today it's the Plasmancer. The idea of this series of videos is to convert the miniatures, well, basically without using extra bits, so just with what you get in the box set. These miniatures are push-fit miniatures, and if you're new to the hobby you may not realise what you can do with the miniatures, so that's the whole idea of this series of videos, to hopefully help you out as I convert my miniatures. Right, let's go table down and have a look at my Plasmancer. Okay, so here is our Plasmancer. What a cool little mini, although there is one thing I don't quite like about him, and that's this pointy finger thing. Hopefully I'm going to try and sort it out in this conversion. We'll have to see. Anyway, just for reference, I have only blue tacked on the head and this front cape section just to make it easier for painting, so that isn't glued into place, but everything else is glued. And of course when we build the second one we want him to look different to this one. First of all, we need to take all of the pieces off of the sprue and of course clean all the mould lines off, which I've already done. And then we're going to have a look at changing this mini up. Now, having a closer look at this guy, I think the first place I'm going to start is on this long staff weapon. What's it called? Not called a long staff weapon. Plasmic Lance. On this Plasmic Lance. And my idea is going to be to have it sort of angled this way, which I think will mean cutting it off at the elbow joint and repositioning it, but I'm not quite sure yet. But the first thing that I need to do is take it off of the terrain on the base there. So I'm going to snip it off first, and then I'm going to have a look and see what I can do with the arm. So let's put all of these pieces aside and get working on this. So I'm going to snip it off just there, and to remove this piece of terrain I'm going to have to snip it off of this cloak as well. So I'm going to just carefully just clip this section off so that I can then start to reposition it. Okay, so that's done, and that was actually pretty easy. So what I had to do is get my knife and effectively cut down into the terrain on the two edges of the cloak at the side and then at the front and back, just cutting into this piece of terrain here so that I could reshape the bottom section. And then again on the end of the staff here where it was embedded into the piece of terrain, I just had to go along the edge, just cut into the plastic, leaving some of this plastic on the end of the staff so I could just reshape it. So like I said, that was pretty easy. The plastic is pretty soft with a sharp knife just to push gently into it. So that's done, and the next step is to cut this at the elbow joint. Now what you want to do is cut it in the recessed area. I'm going to use the front of the joint because that's slightly wider for me to get my knife in. I'm just going to gently cut around that joint. I will have to cut into the arm as well, but just cut that section off. And I'm going to do it very carefully. I'm not going to be doing it on the camera because, well, to be honest with you, I'm going to have to do it under my magnifying glass because, well, my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be and I can't do it on camera. But I'm just going to gently, with my knife, just cut that joint right there in the groove. Okay, so that's done, and again that was quite easy. I used my usual trick, as you may have seen in my previous Indomitus conversion videos. Some blue tack on a paint pot, allowing me to place it into position and gently cut it without damaging any of the other plastic. So that was done quite successfully. I've reshaped it very slightly, but now this will go into here as opposed to being upright, it's going to be on the side, and it's going to look pretty cool. Now, of course, because we've cut the rocks off of the bottom section on this side, it means we're left with just this little rod to connect it to the base. Now, potentially I was thinking we could maybe use a flying base to get this guy floating in the air, but I quite like the idea of it not having a flying base. However, that's going to be a very weak point now, so I was thinking about what I could do to effectively make this stronger, and I have a plan. In comes the Scorpic Destroyer Lord. Hello there, how are you? I'm good, thanks. Good. Right, this guy here is going to be featured in an upcoming video. I'm going to convert him as well. However, for this video, he's here because, well, my plan will be to have this guy here in the normal pose with all of the standard push fit pieces done together, and then my second one I'm going to convert, and that will include taking the terrain sections off of the feet to make him look different. I'm going to put my own pieces of terrain on there, which means effectively this big section just at the bottom here is going to be surplus to requirement. So if I cut that piece off of the foot for the conversion that I'm going to do, I can then use this for this guy. And I'm thinking, as we've got this pole coming out of the ground, if we stuck that section next to here so that it's glued quite heavily onto this piece somehow, then it's going to make it a lot sturdier. So that's my idea. I could potentially glue the side of the cloak to this if I want to, and I have the option to angle this in a different position to really make this guy look different. So that's the plan. First of all, of course, I've got to cut his foot off of this, and luckily this foot isn't embedded into this. It's going to be a flat, straight cut. So I'm going to do that and then have a closer look at what I can do with it. Okay, so I just cut the leg off. I've placed this on the base. It's not glued, it's just in the hole there. I've just moved it slightly to make it fit, and I've gone for a central position. However, I always have the option to cut that little plastic thing off and glue this anywhere I like onto the base. However, what I have been doing is I've dry fitted this together, so it's not glued, but I've just put the two sides on to work out how I'm going to sort of pose this guy on here. And originally I was thinking of having him sort of angled backwards, but on reflection he's going to look a lot better angled forward. And although it's difficult to tell until I've actually cut this piece off, just leaving the pipe, I'm pretty sure that I can glue the pipe onto the side of the base, and then either his towel or the cloak onto the base as well. But I can't 100% tell until I've cut this little rock section off. However, he definitely looks better leaning forward, especially with the way I've got his little weapon there. And I'm now thinking for this hand here, bearing in mind I'm only using the Indomitus box set for this, otherwise I'd be looking in my bits box for a different hand, but I want to keep it to the box set. And I'm thinking if I cut this one off at the elbow joint as well and have it straighter with the pose leaning forward, his arm's going to be coming down and it's not going to look like he's got a pointy finger, which hopefully will solve my issue of not liking this finger. First of all though, I'm going to take this apart and then I'm going to take off these little rocks which are joined to the pipe, just leaving the pipe and then just confirming exactly where I'm going to put it onto the base. Okay, so I've worked out exactly how this is going to go, and I've done a little bit more work. I've drilled a hole into the base here with my 2mm pin vise, and I drilled the hole at an angle so that I can actually put this little pipe into the hole angled forward, and I've got a gluing position here for the front of the cape. So I'm going to have two gluing points which will make it nice and strong, and I will fill the hole with green stuff as well when I glue this all together. Now again, this isn't glued, as you can see, it's just come off. So this new pose has solved my issue of this dodgy pointing finger, which I just don't like. But in my new pose, funnily enough, I actually like the pointy finger, because when you put this weapon here next to his pointy finger, it just makes more sense. He's pointing at someone, he's got his staff lined up, and he's saying, "You've had it." However, the original pointy finger, to me, well, it just looks like he's tapping someone on the shoulder, which I just don't like that. But in this pose, it looks so much better. So my first step is going to be to glue this piece onto the base, and then obviously glue on the two side sections. I'm not going to glue the staff on until I've got all of this glued into position, so I can work out exactly where I want to glue this. And of course, just like the first model, I'm not going to glue the head or this section on. I'm going to leave that off for painting, but I'm nearly there. Okay, so before I move on, I just want to show you what I've done here. So I did put some green stuff in the hole, and I used super glue to glue that back section. Even though it's plastic, with the green stuff in there, super glue worked really well. Now arguably I didn't have to use the green stuff, but it just helped the bond. And then on the front here I just used plastic glue with that front robe. So that's all dried, it's pretty sturdy, so I'm ready to glue the rest of the body into position. Okay, there he is, all finished. So just to note, the front cape and the head is just pushed into position. I haven't glued that for painting purposes. However, I have glued the rest of him together, including his plasmic lance, which I actually used super glue to glue that into position, so I got a nice quick bond in the right position. And I have to say, I'm loving this new pose. And like I said earlier, I'm now loving the pointing finger, which on the original model I wasn't too impressed with. However, looking at both side to side, you can see we've got a totally different pose now. On my conversion, I'm probably going to just cut the stem off of the base section so that I can reposition it over slightly, just to make the model more central. But I won't do that until I've painted him, and then it's time to put him onto the base and do the basing material. But that is him done. I really hope you like him. It's a pretty easy conversion to do in the end, even though we were chopping elbows off. But let me know what you think of him in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this conversion video, then here are my previous conversion videos, which I'm sure you'll enjoy watching next. Beam me up.